Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on The Bottom Line. On The Bottom Line, we say business at the speed of thought. My name is Kwasi Afriyie, and I'm coming your way live from our studios here at Rage, here in Accra. We are live on DSTV channel 277, and of course, we are live on our Facebook page, Chairman Kwasi Afriyie, and obviously on Metro TV News page. We are also live on DSTV, as I've announced to you early on, channel 277. If you have any comments during the course of our discussions, you can put them up on our Facebook pages. We'll try as much as possible to read them for you. Tonight is a big two. I call it, first of all, the economic community of West African states have for, I think, about the third or fourth time postponed the launch of a new currency, which is called ECO, for the whole of the bloc, which is supposed to facilitate trade. We have AfCFTA working now. We are looking at the benefits of AfCFTA, and we have been looking at a discussion on AfCFTA. However, this was supposed to be an adder to support and facilitate trade between these countries that form the economic community of West African states. How is this going to affect the operations of AfCFTA? How is this going to impede facilitation of trade on the block? We would have a look at all of these details, and we have experts that are going to join us tonight to have a look at that. Secondly, NBSSI is now the Ghana Enterprises Agency, GEA. And so we'll look at the need for the change of name, what has happened so far over the period. We have hosted the chief executive before, and she ran us through how they were able to mitigate the impact of COVID with the support to some small businesses. We'll go back to that and then go into what the Ghana Enterprises Agency is supposed to do. So we have quite a lot on the table tonight. You want to stay with us, and then send in your questions as well. So we begin with that of ECOWAS. And as I've introduced to you early on, we have a story on that. They met here, of course, in Ghana. And Jean-Claude Cassibrou is the president of the ECOWAS Commission. Let's hear him.
But today, all 15 member countries agreed to have the reform of the ECOWAS institution and to bring the number of commissioners from 15 to 7 commissioners. And I think that was, if there is one thing that we can take out of this summit, is this achievement and important decision that was made by the head of state and government. We also had, in terms of the single currency, a new roadmap and a new convergence pact, and the convergence pact that will cover the period 22-26, and the 27 being the launching of the ECO. So that's also a very big decision, because you recall, due to the COVID, the shock given by COVID, the head of state had decided to suspend the implementation of the Convergence Pact in 2020 and 2021. So now, they also decided that the Ministerial Committee should look at a new roadmap, a new Convergence Pact, to take into account the lesson that have been taken in that we could take from the previous pact. So I think this is now something that has been done. The Ministerial Committee has presented the result, the new roadmap, and the new Convergence Pact that was adopted by the head of state and government. There are some other issues that need to be solved, but I think this is a key achievement for the single currency.
Right, so that's Jean-Claude Cassibrou, president of the ECOWAS Commission, saying that a new ministerial committee has to be set up to look into a new roadmap for the currency, which is the ECO, in 2027. I have experts here tonight, and right with me here in the studio is Louis Afful with the AfCFTA Policy Network, and then I have on the line Toluwanimi Adeyefa, who is a financial analyst in Nigeria, also joining us on Zoom. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be having Dr. Lord Mensa also join us via Zoom pretty shortly. And Dauba Mbai is a Senegalese journalist. He has put up his comment, and in a short while, we'll read the comments on this whole thing to you. But let me start with Yao here in the studio. Thank you very much for joining us, and good evening to you.
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers.
I hope you're doing well.
Yes, we're doing well.
I think this is about the fourth, let me go straight to the point, fourth or fifth time that we have had to postpone the utilization of the currency or the implementation of the currency. What does this mean for us as a bloc? Are we not ready?
Well, I think that it takes us back to why we have not been able to. It was said that by this year, or probably next year, it was supposed to be launched.
It actually even started last year. It was supposed to have been last year and then this year, of course. And then.
But the difficulty you have is that, one, before you have a currency, you have to have a central bank. So we don't have a West African and ECOWAS central bank. So that needs to be put in place. That is one. Then secondly, the convergence criteria, which has always been shifting. Most of the members have not been able to meet the criteria. We have the primary criteria and the secondary criteria. Out of the countries who are supposed to meet this criteria, Ghana was the only one that was able to meet most of its primary criteria. However, the two major countries that are anchoring this whole thing is Ghana and Nigeria. And by anchoring, in layman's time, it means that these two countries are using the economies as a kind of collateral backup for the currency to survive. So it means, therefore, that if Ghana and Nigeria are having any economic setback, obviously, there's no way it can continue.
But do you agree that the COVID should be the reason why we haven't had this? Because
I have not touched on COVID because before COVID, most of them were not meeting the
targets.
Criteria, the convergence criteria. That is the convergence criteria. They were not meeting it. That was even way before COVID came. And so COVID was just another evil
opportunity to.
It was unfortunate. COVID did a lot of harm. But as at the time that COVID actually hit, there were these setbacks of meeting the convergence criteria. As I've given you some of them. And I'm saying that the other difficulty is that the CFA countries who were hooked to the French were trying to wean off from France, okay? But that was not just done easily. So they were all coming under ECO. But that is a systematic one. So suddenly you cannot just have them declare that they are no more tied to France and they
using the CFA, and now they are using the ECO.
And that one needs to be totally solved. And the most important point I've made is that Ghana and Nigeria became the powerhouses of this anchoring. And let's come back home and look at the economic, macroeconomic indicators of both Nigeria and Ghana. And that will give the answer why we've not been able beyond the COVID to meet that criteria, the convergence criteria. These are some of the reasons why till now it's becoming difficult. And I think they've given themselves enough time because now most are in post-COVID recovery. And that will take some time. So to 2027 is a bit good. It will even lead to them preparing whether they are going to position themselves for the continental currency. Because AU itself has Agenda 2063, which has in mind one African central bank. So for me, I think that by that time, a lot of the secondary criteria would have been met by most of the
well, let me go to Toluwanimi, and I'll come back to you to talk about the economic indicators. Once you state that it is Ghana and Nigeria that are the pivot of having this work, we are from 2014 till now, when we were supposed to have launched earlier, the economic indicators have not been that bad until COVID hit us. Now that we are in COVID, would we be able to achieve the 2027? Coming back from that. But let me get to you, Toluwanimi, who is on Zoom with us, all the way from Nigeria. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. And let me, first of all, ask you, 2014 we were supposed to do this, 2020, even from 2005. Now the excuse is being given that we were not able to do it because of COVID. And we have all the way now up to 2027. Is there hope for you?
Thank you for having me. Yes, as regards that, 2027, that's about 6 years from now.
Right.
They've given themselves some time, but if we go back, the initiative started from 2001 when the West African Monetary Institute was created to structure the modalities for a single currency in the eco region. And that's 19, 20 years. They've not been able to adopt that. And you think maybe giving yourself 6 years extra would do that. I'm not so optimistic, except there are some modalities in place. For instance, we need to talk about the fact that you need a single central bank for that. Honestly, we are speaking to ourselves, are the West African countries ready to lose their sovereignty in that regards and adopt one single central bank that will do the printing of money, set interest rates, and the likes?
Right.
So until all the countries involved come up with the willpower to get this done, I don't see us pushing it through by 2027. I think the COVID just came as an excuse. It was also in 2020, but we didn't see it happening. And 2027, I don't know, would a lot of things change? Your guess is as good as mine.
Right, but let me come back to, before I come back to COVID, let me come back to the central bank. We have most of these economies that we are talking about wallowing in huge debt to GDP ratios in their countries, huge debt. And we are talking about a central bank. How would this synergy be? How will the central bank be able to run through the process when we have individual countries struggling in their own ways and means? I mean, we can talk about, for example, Ghana here, we can talk about your country, Nigeria, we can talk about most of the countries. And Yao here in the studio is also talking about the fact that Ghana and Nigeria are the pivot of this happening. And we are talking about the central bank. How will this be?
Yes, I share that sentiment in the sense that even when you look at the convergence criteria for this currency, there should be single-digit inflation rate at the end of each year.
Exactly.
Nigeria has not had a single-digit inflation rate in a very long time. I can't remember Nigeria ever having a single-digit inflation rate. Presently is about 17.6%. Also, in terms of the primary criteria, Nigeria is just meeting just one, which is having more than 3 months of import cover for external reserve import cover. In terms of deficit financing of 4% to GDP, Nigeria's own is way higher than that. In terms of the CBN, in terms of the central bank of each country not financing more than 10% of deficit, Nigeria's own is way higher than that. So if the two key members, the two key anchors cannot pull through in terms of even meeting their primary and secondary criteria, then what hope do you have for the other countries in the subcontinent?
So let me now move to the challenge that comes with the use of the CFA by the French countries, French-speaking countries. In fact, we have had an instance where a president of one of the French-speaking countries, Alassane Ouattara, let me be particular on that, stated that they wanted to now use the CFA as a currency for the bloc. This is a challenge that would come moving forward. Of course, there is a new plan. Do you see that as a challenge, as I am anticipating, or we'll be able to overcome that?
Imagine using the CFA currency for the bloc would have posed serious challenges for Nigeria, for instance, because the countries that use the CFA currently have their allegiance to France, although the advantage they have is the fact that their currency is pegged to the euro. So in terms of FS risk, that is managed. But Nigeria would not want to lose our sovereignty in that way. And I don't think Ghana too would pose a problem to Ghana, because adopting CFA as the currency would meet strong opposition from the two major partners. So in terms of the ECOWAS structure, the two major Anglophone countries, Nigeria and Ghana, are also the major markets. One majority of the countries involved, about the other countries, are French-speaking. So there'll be a challenge in that regard. I don't see how it would work.
But do you see the French-speaking countries accepting the ECO that easily?
That's tricky. Would they accept it? Depending on the conditions available. But currently, the idea is they want to reduce the influence of their former colonial master, that is France. So adopting the ECO in that sense would help them to win off France. But it also comes with the challenges in the sense that then they would be subject to the influence of the major trading partners, that is Nigeria and Ghana. So it's a tricky situation, if you ask me.
Very tricky. But before I come back to you, we were expecting to have Douba Mbaye, who is a Senegalese journalist, to give us, of course, the aspect of the French-speaking countries. He has, however, not been able to join us, but he's sent us his comment. We want to put that on screen. So, Toluwanimi, if you can see us on the screen, the comment is here, and then I can also read from the screen here. I'll read, and then I'll pick your comments each on this one before we end this topic. It says, we are far from the idea of criticizing the monetary zone, which can be the panacea in a floating exchange rate system, which does not exclude, let us remember, agreements between central banks to stabilize certain rates. Now is the time to reinvent our currencies. The countries which have more or less succeeded have put in place a rigorous, although involving exchange control, and composed in their monetary baskets of the proportions of several currencies. If the states of the CFA zone manage to transcend the consequences of their balkanization, then they will be able to issue and mint a currency guaranteed by foreign currency accumulated in the name of chromatics, so dear to Plato. The other alternative, which militates for the success of the establishment of indigenous currencies in the so-called CFA zone and beyond, is a real culture of chrysohedonism. This system based on the wealth of nations by the accumulation of precious metals. In its basement, the continent abounds in it. It remains to be truly inserted in international trade led by the WTO. Analysts encourage our countries, like the developed nations, to trade with the rest of the world in the name of free trade by making little use of tariff barriers and by abusing non-tariff ones. Standards, rules, etc. That's where he got the quotation from. So let me come to you in the studio. Our currencies should first be strong before we get into having a single currency for ECOWAS.
Good. If I'm to pass comment on the statement?
Right.
Okay. I mean, that is an opinion that has been expressed by the journalist from Senegal. But you see, we have moved beyond literature. Now, what Africa needs is practical implementation of things. You understand? Unlike the continental free trade where the heads of state signed the agreement and it was boosting intra-African trade of what they were doing before. So they were just to boost it. Unlike that one, this is currency. And with currency, like our Nigerian colleague said, you are giving up some sovereignty. Beyond the sovereignty, currencies are tied to productive capacity. You can't just start issuing a currency when your productive capacity is not strong. What is the productive capacity of most of the West African economies? That is what, because if you produce, your currencies are more than exactly what your productive capacity is, of course, then you are going to get massive inflation, of which is one of the criteria you are supposed to meet. By the end of the year, you are supposed to have a single-digit inflation throughout the year. Now you are not producing, you are just cutting, issuing currencies. Now there are two countries that are supposed to anchor. What was their GDP growth just for the last few years? So it is not about one country. If you use only Ghana as the reason to have gotten ECO, we would have done well, because our macroeconomic performance was growing better. This is not only about Ghana. Yes, it's not only Ghana. It is about these countries. So Ghana might be doing, what about the other countries? And you cannot pull alone. And so until we tackle our productive capacities well, it will be difficult for us to just have issue a currency. Unlike the CFA franc, they tied theirs to the French economy. And so you realize that the French economy was very strong, and so it was pulling it up. Now, if they win themselves off and they decide to join as one ECO, they are now coming to either continue to strengthen their capacity, productive capacity. This is where I think that we need to get the records, set the record straight.
Let me go to Toluwanimi, and we have heard from our Senegalese friend. I'm sure you will pass a comment on that. He says that we should already have strong currencies before we want to go into having one single currency for the bloc. And then secondly, he raises a point which brings my mind to the fact that we are virtually raw exporting countries. We export raw materials. We look at our raw materials and export them without adding value to it, without manufacturing, without producing. And we are targeting 6 years from now. Are we able to do this?
So as regards that, I would first like to state that what we need is a stable currency. What countries need is a stable currency that tends to allow for prediction of trends and macroeconomic variable. And as regards production, yeah, I agree with you. The quality of our products matter. People assume that a single currency would improve trade within the subcontinent and the continental region. But trade is based on the premise of comparative advantage, where you produce what you are able to produce better with fewer resources than the other partner. But in Africa, we produce similar items. That is why we have to import and export from the likes of, at least for Nigeria, we import, our major trading partner is India, the likes of China, United States, because they produce the things we do not have. So for trade to occur, you must be willing to give me what I do not have. I must be able to give you what you do not have. So until that is in place, the single currency will not just solve the problem.
Right. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, because of time, I would love to leave you here, but we are happy you were able to join us, and thank you very much for the insightful comments that you have given us. So Toluwanimi Adeyefa is a financial analyst all the way from Nigeria. He joined us via Zoom. I'm sure we'll have him regularly on our show when we discuss pure finance activities. Let me come back to you now for your final comment. We are virtually a raw producing block, a raw material producing block, and we export raw material, and we are giving ourselves 6 years from now.
Let me borrow the words of His Excellency the Vice President. The African economies should fix their fundamentals. They should fix their major productive.
Are we able to do this within 6 years?
It can be, because we are recovering from COVID. After recovery, you have to start another major one that has to do with fixing your productive capacities. After that one, you are supposed to diversify your economy, moving from raw material to value added. You don't just use primary technology, you have to use sophisticated technology to add value. It takes time before you can have a competitive price for your product. So until we are able to, we give ourselves some few years. We should give ourselves some time.
We are not ready within 6 years.
No, we are not ready. It's not possible.
So
it's not possible to take some time.
Louis Afful, AfCFTA Policy Network says we are not ready within the 6 years that the heads of states for ECOWAS have given the bloc to be able to implement the ECO as a currency. First of all, we need to have the central bank. And secondly, we need to make sure that the economies of the individual countries within the bloc work. The economies need to be fixed. And that is what has to be done before we are able to talk about implementing the ECO. We are still live on the bottom line, and we say this is business at the speed of thought. Thank you very much as well for doing us the honors of getting into the studio tonight. We'll get back to you regularly. The second half will be with the Ghana Enterprises Agency. The Chief Executive Officer will be in the studio. Stick and stay with us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back from the break. This is the bottom line with me, Kwasi Afriyie. And I told you earlier on that the second half will be about the Ghana Enterprises Agency. We knew them as the NBSSI. And last year, 2020, because of the COVID, there was a lot of news about them and the support they had given a lot of small-scale enterprise businesses and all of that. We saw the president launch the Ghana Enterprises Agency, and a lot of us have been asking questions, why the need for the change of name? And we have the Chief Executive Officer in the studio tonight to be asking her all the questions that have boarded our mind, and her name is Kosi Yankey-Ayeh. We all know her name. I wanted to be able to make sure that I add the Ayeh. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
I hope you're doing very well.
Doing very well, thank you.
So we have the video where the president was announcing the change of name and then, of course, putting in place the Ghana Enterprises Agency. We want to have a look at that and then come back to you in the studio. So
Small
yes, if
and
we have
medium-sized enterprises have been the backbone of Ghana's economic development for years. Through the National Board for Small-Scale Industries,
Yes.
some MSMEs
So I can
have
take it
managed
off.
to
Yes.
scale up. The NBSSI was established. The work of the NBSSI became more crucial as it was the driver of government support to ailing businesses. In order to further advance the growth of the small and medium-scale enterprises, the NBSSI is now being transformed to the Ghana Enterprises Agency.
The decision of government to do this could not have come at a better time for 5 strategic reasons. First, unemployment. One of the most critical development challenges confronting us is how we can create jobs. Every year, over 300,000 young people graduate from our tertiary institutions. And with the success of the free SHS policy, it means that this number would even increase. And so it's absolutely critical that we no longer rely on the public sector to be the most important source of job creation, but to turn to the MSME.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta charged leadership of the GEA to adopt more progressive investment options to grow more businesses. More than 300 businesses, according to President Akufo-Addo, will soon benefit from funds from the agency.
Disbursement of this grant, amounting to 145 million cedis, will be made to 250 to 350 SMEs to help them grow into sustainable businesses, capable of competing on the regional, continental, and global stages. I assure all MSMEs that this is just the beginning. The best is yet to come, and government will help ensure that the sector receives more support to help in its transformation process.
Kosi Yankey-Ayeh is CEO of the Ghana Enterprises Agency.
We're looking at those who are manufacturing, those who are into industrialization, to build that. The fund is ready. Actually, the portal for the fund will go live on Monday, which is this coming Monday. So yes, as the president said, the commitment is there, the resources are ready. So it's not now, we weren't here to make promises and just say we have a policy, but also talk about, now that we've designed a policy and we've set up the agency to deliver on the policy, what's next? So the tools and the resources are also available to move it to the next level.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Trade and Industry has developed the first national MSME and entrepreneurship policy that will, among other things, pave the way for government to establish the first ever MSME fund that will be accessible to all types of businesses and administered by the GEA.
Right, so you're welcome back into the studio, and I have the Chief Executive of the Ghana Enterprises Agency, Kosi Yankey-Ayeh, right here in the studio with me. Thank you very much once again for joining us.
Thank you.
I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very well.
And you're doing well. We saw you with the president and the changes. Why the change from NBSSI?
I think it's important to note that it wasn't just a change in name,
right,
but actually it was a change in how the business was run, how the agency was going to support and benefit Ghanaians. Over the years, I think it's important to know that the NBSSI Act was set up in 1981. And it became operational in 1985. In 1981, the way the country was being run and the way the country looked like, the outlook of the economy, the environment, and the enablers were totally different, right? And when you fast forward to a time now where we are now in 2021, it's a different environment. Technology has taken over. COVID is even here and it's changed the way we do business. Businesses are operating on a different level. The direction of the country and the policies are totally different. And as was stated earlier, the first national MSME policy has been designed by the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So it's important for us to know that if that has been designed, then what is the driving force? What is going to implement that? Was the old National Board for Small Scale Industry fit for purpose? And no, it wasn't. So now, really, the transformation into the Ghana Enterprises Agency is that agency that would lead and drive the direction and the vision of the government and ensure that there's sustainability in a sector at times like this.
When we mentioned NBSSI, everybody thought it was a funding agency, funding people. I've seen the fact that you want to go beyond that, and the Ghana Enterprises Agency is set to do more than that. So what are we to expect? Funding, or what else?
So, like you mentioned, the National Board for Small Scale Industries at that time was not a funding agency. It was one of the deliverables. And it's important to know what and how do you support micro, small, and medium enterprises. And the support you give them, it could be access to finance, either you're facilitating it, either you do have the access and you're providing it to beneficiaries within your ecosystem. It's either you're providing business development support services and ensuring that the businesses grow, providing regulatory support. So those are the things that encompasses the work that we do. So our work is not necessarily only giving access to finance. It's about understanding the needs of the beneficiaries and the businesses that you work with and providing the needed support, which could be finance, which could not be finance, and could be business development support. It could be facilitation of regulatory support and many other things as well.
The president must have seen something very good in you, right from NBSSI. You've been there for 4 years now, and now Ghana Enterprises Agency. What have you been doing so far? I have read about some of the things you have achieved. Trained the over 65,000 youth. You have supported lots of businesses. Can you run us through some of them?
Oh yes, I think that the new Ghana Enterprises Agency, when it was the National Board for Small Scale Industries, there was a lot that was done. And a lot of the things that we did was to even push a lot of regulatory support in terms of also getting more people to access certification from Food and Drugs Authority and working very closely with Ghana Standards Authority as well. It's also important to know that our interventions in the 4 years that we were there hit over 600,000 people. I mean, it's unprecedented in terms of the touch.
600,000 people?
Yes.
Within 4 years?
Yes. And so you're looking at that across the nation. We're able to expand our footprint in the districts level more than we had ever seen to 191 business advisory centers, 37 business resource centers that provide, you know, really one-on-one, close to the district, close to the people interventions.
So if I'm a startup or if I'm a small business, if I've just started and I am in, for example, Savelugu or maybe Kwabre East in the Ashanti region, I would find an office of the Ghana Enterprises Agency. If I'm looking for some form of advice, not necessarily funds, I'll find an office to attend to my needs.
You will find our offices in the 191 districts and also the 37. And I think that at the launch, if you remember, the Minister of Trade had spoken highly about how we're going to expand and really be more decentralized than we even are now. So yes, in Kwabre East, you'd find someone there. One of our business advisory center heads is called Mahi Muhammad, who's around that area as well, who can provide support.
Oh, you know. That's very instructive. You know the names of your business advisors in the districts?
Almost all of them, yes, I do.
You know them personally?
Yes.
As a CEO sitting in Accra here,
why should
you know every staff in all the districts?
I know all my staff. Why would I not know them? It's important to know the people you work with.
How often do you meet them? I mean, this is off what we are discussing, but...
I meet them quite often. I travel to the ground because I think that the work we do is a grounds and a grassroots kind of job. And so you need to understand what is happening. You need to understand what the people's needs are. And to be able to do that, you have to get on the ground. And so I spend a lot of time traveling to meet them. I also find time to bring them for training programs in Accra to build their capacity. So I know all my staff. I've met all of them.
That's very good of a CEO.
I've met all of them.
And you're doing very well. But you were talking about some of the things you have been doing so far, the achievements of the Ghana Enterprises Agency, then NBSSI, over the last 4 years.
Yes. And I think that we also talked about building the capacity of our staff institutionally, being able to even go through this transformation. It's not easy, right? And it's not something that just happens. And it's important that, and I'm very happy that this government had the intention and the drive and really the will to make it happen, and that it happened. And it's important to also know that one of the things we've been able to achieve under this current government was the CAP Business Support Scheme.
Right. I was going to come to that, but let's go straight to it.
Okay. So the CAP Business Support Scheme, I mean, COVID happened, the whole world was reeling, and everybody was trying to figure out what next, how do we do whatever. And the president, you know, in his wisdom and guidance, came up with this idea and concept to drive support for the business and private sector. And not every nation did that. And so it's important to really take note of that. And through this intervention, for the first time in our history, we're able to see within 6 weeks about over 800,000 people go and assess the TIN at that time, which was really the first step in formalization. Because we speak about formalization, how does that happen? Who drives it and how does it look like? And as an institution, we're able to drive to a large extent that not only even at GRA, but even registrar generals, those who went back to register or start their own businesses. And also at a time like that, when we looked at our numbers in terms of the beneficiaries, those who were benefiting from the businesses, we realized that the jobs we were able to sustain was really high. So you're looking at accessing funds to 300,000 people to help them. And at the time you provided them with help, even if in a worst case scenario, they had 2 employees, that's 600,000 lives that were touched at that time, but in terms of impact.
That's during the COVID period.
Yes, during the, I mean, we're still in COVID period.
Some would say we are in post-COVID, but I mean, we saw you very much in the limelight during the COVID period with the support that we were giving people. But we are told that people still haven't accessed the funds that you gave them.
You know, it's very interesting. I knew you were going to ask me this question, so I was waiting for it. And the reason why I was waiting for it is that I watched your show a couple of weeks ago. Right. And in it, you had 4 people at the table.
Yes, right? Yes. I had one from the NEIP, I had Ghana Startup Network, and I had 2 entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs.
And you heard from most of them that they had received support.
In fact, they commended you. They mentioned the support they had gotten.
And I didn't know. I was changing channels and I got there. So if you look at them as a representation of Ghana, and all 3 of them said they had benefited, that's 100%.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So that means a lot of people benefited.
Exactly.
So I think that's your answer.
That most people went for it.
That most people, as much as possible, we helped as many people as possible. 300,000 people. And even without pushing or coming here to talk to you to bring people, all the 3 people who showed up at your studio said, we did benefit from CAP business support. But and that's a good point.
Those who did not benefit, what were the challenges?
So there were people
who had actually applied and still did not get access to the funds.
So I think it's important to know that there was not enough funds for everybody to benefit from, and that's
exactly.
life.
Exactly.
Economic resources are never, you know, everywhere in the world. That was one. Secondly, I think it was important to note that some people also didn't fill the forms properly. There were those who, there were duplication of either the TIN numbers or phone numbers, which then showed up as fraudulent on the system. There was also the challenge of having people who did not put in the right information in the system, and there were incomplete applications. So there were so many different
In fact, the last time we spoke to you, had identified some fraudulent applications, people who were not having any business at all, but because of the announcement of the money coming up and people wanting to take advantage of it, they just create any business at all without proper registration, and then they apply. What happened to those people?
So I think that people, though, before, they wouldn't get access to the funds. I mean, I'll give an example where there was a woman in the Western region who had found my email. She went on my Facebook, kept sending me messages consistently. And then finally, I made it a point to talk to her with the team. And then she said, I had applied, I didn't get it. You are not being fair to me.
Wow.
I said, show me your code. Because we only identify people in the system by a code, not a name. So she gave us the code, we went in the system, and then we explained to her. She had asked her PA to apply for her, and her PA had also used her details to apply for herself, right? Which she hadn't approved of.
Right.
So if I had given her, it had been fraudulent on both parts. And once it comes in the system flags it as fraudulent, right? So automatically, it's not paid. And so as much as possible, if there's no funds and they're fraudulent and we've sent the message, then that means there really is something that showed up, that showed that it was a fraud.
So, like you watched the other show, there is evidence of practicality, evidence of the impact, evidence of how you've been able to support the revival of the economy with your institution. Let me ask about monitoring. Do you monitor some of these young people that we brought in here, the monies that you have given to them, making sure that their businesses come up, they employ more people, and then expand the economy? Do you have an effective monitoring and evaluation system in place to make sure that the taxpayers' money is not being lost?
I think it's important that every program that we initiate or implement at the Ghana Enterprises Agency now, we do have a monitoring mechanism. So we just don't give the money, or we just don't provide business development support, or we just don't provide mentoring and coaching and walk away from the participant. We follow through, and that's why our offices are in the districts level in such a way that it's close to the beneficiaries and the people we work with. So there's that happening, that form of monitoring. We then also provided training programs. So one of the add-ons to the CAP business support was technical assistance training. So we've trained currently about 12,000 plus beneficiaries across the nation in building their capacity, actually understanding their needs. Where we see shortfalls, we provide that training capacity in building programs and ensure that they are building their skills and their businesses. All that is a form of monitoring to see what happened to the funds. Are they growing their businesses? And if there are challenges, how do we provide the needed support to build and continue to strengthen the MSMEs?
I'll go for a quick break and come back, but you have 145 million Ghana cedis now. We would look at that, how you're going to disburse that, whether I can be a beneficiary of it now, and who qualifies, the application processes and all that. But you're watching the bottom line, and we have the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Enterprises Agency right here in the studio. Stick and stay with us. You're welcome back from the break. We are still in the studio with Kosi Yankey-Ayeh. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Ghana Enterprises Agency. And I'll come back to you have 145 million Ghana cedis now. In fact, you have an experience in supporting businesses, and we can attest to it from what has happened so far, right from last year up until now. Not even last year, from 2017 up until now. What is going to happen with the 145 million? Sure.
So if you remember, I think that when COVID hit, the goal and the direction of government was to see how we can support businesses, how we could hold them steady and really sustain them in the time such as when COVID hit. And I must really acknowledge the President for his vision, and also the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the Minister, Honorable Alan Trematin, at that time, where there was a drive and real direction from all these parties, really from the Ministry of Finance as well, the Honorable Ken, to really see how we can drive the economy and really support it and hold it down. So the first was the intervention that was done initially, and then this 145 million was to see how those businesses that we were able to hold steady, how do we see them also grow? I think before I came, there was the AfCFTA Policy Network.
Right.
So you're looking at situations such as AfCFTA, which has come. Very good policy initiatives. How do these businesses play a role? And so you're looking at small, medium enterprises, which are businesses with employees from 6 to as high as 100 within that category, and seeing that these businesses within this category, these businesses who are either agro-processors, who are manufacturing, these businesses who are in, really textile and garments, food.
Any sector at all?
It's not any sector.
Okay.
So those that I'm listing in terms of food and beverages, the tourism and hospitality sector, looking at even the healthcare sector and pharmaceuticals. How do we hold them steady and use them to really strengthen the economy and push the economy to the next level? right? So in the CAP business support, we looked at micro, small, and medium enterprises. Traders from as low as we could go to as high as we could go. Now we're saying that we've provided that support. We're starting a new phase. This is not the only phase. And in the speech as well, you heard the president say that this is just the beginning.
Right.
There's more good
he
things
mentioned
to come.
that.
So this is just the beginning, and we're saying that with this 145, how do we start to grow these businesses, these SMEs, these businesses that have been intervened in, those that have not been intervened in, but need the support to move to that next level. And that's what we intend to do going forward.
Has the application process begun already?
Yes, it began today.
Today?
Yes.
So how do we go about it? Is there a portal that we need to apply to, or your website?
Yes, if you go through our website, which is the www.gea.gov, when you go on there, you'd be able to go through to apply for the loan or for the grant as it is. So there are portals to go, and if there are challenges, you could always go to our business advisory centers or resource centers and speak to someone who can guide you towards the needed support that you want.
Unfortunately, our time is up. I had one more question for you, but I'm sure maybe when we get the time to come into your office, we'll put it up to you. But Ghana Enterprises Agency, she is the Chief Executive Officer of Ghana Enterprises Agency. 145 million is still about supporting businesses grow through the COVID and reviving the economy. She's been leading the fort right from 2017, a lot of business support. And you can now go onto their website. There is a portal that you can apply through. Application process has begun today. Take advantage of it. My name is Kwasi Afriyie. The show today has been about ECOWAS and, of course, Ghana Enterprises Agency. Have a very good evening.